There is a very specific kind of move that could tell us, louder than any press conference, that the Golden State Warriors finally understand what their next era has to look like. Not a veteran Band-Aid, not a panic swing, but a long-term bet on a young guard who can carry usage, create his own shot, live off the ball, defend in space, and handle a spotlight that breaks most prospects before they ever touch an NBA floor. If the front office ever decides to go all in on that blueprint instead of chasing shortcuts, there is one name that fits like it was designed in a lab for this franchise. And tonight, directly with you here on Warriors News Fan Report, I'm going to walk through why that name changes the conversation about our future, why it lines up with what's happening around the league, and why it should be on the radar of every serious Warriors fan paying attention to where this team is heading beyond Stephen Curry. Right now, we're living in the tension. On one side, the echo of a dynasty that redefined basketball. Steph still bending defenses, still warping scouting reports, still giving you nights where time feels like 2016 again. Draymond still dictating tempo and mentality when he is right, a fan base that measures seasons in rings, not participation trophies. On the other side, the math. The roster getting older in key spots, the second apron penalties squeezing flexibility, other Western powers stacking younger stars, and a recent history of half measures, missed windows, and experiments that didn't fully land. You feel it. I feel it. Golden State cannot keep improvising its way forward with patchwork solutions. If this organization wants to matter in 5, 7, 10 years, it needs someone who can eventually look at that responsibility of being the guy on the perimeter and not blink. When the Warriors are at their smartest, they are ahead of the curve on that question. They were early on Steph's genius when other teams doubted his body, early on Klay's perfect fit next to him, early on Draymond as a fulcrum. The slip-ups of the last seasons weren't because this franchise forgot how to identify talent. They came when emotion, timeline confusion, and short-term noise clouded the edge that once made this front office ruthless and creative at the same time. That's why this moment is so delicate. You've got Curry, still elite enough to justify competing right now. You've got young pieces like Kuminga and Podziemski flashing serious value. You've got ownership that has already shown it's willing to spend. But under the new CBA, one bad contract or one reckless all-in trade can chain you to mediocrity. The margin for error is gone. The only way to respect Steph's final years and protect the future at the same time is to nail the next perimeter centerpiece before he costs a galaxy of assets. So let me paint this very clearly. The ideal profile is a big guard with real handle, separation, 3-level scoring, willingness to defend, and the mindset to operate in a high IQ, high-pressure system. Someone who can carry offense in second units, then slowly grow into running entire games. Someone who can share the floor with movement shooters, process complex reads, and attack mismatches without freezing the flow of the offense. Somebody who, if everything breaks right, could step into a lead role when Steph eventually lets go without the franchise collapsing into a full rebuild. That's the template every serious team dreams of. Very few prospects actually check enough boxes for you that even consider tilting your long-term planning around them. And this is where the conversation stops being generic and one name starts to matter. Darren Peterson. A strong 6'4", 6'5" combo guard with advanced scoring instincts, a polished pull-up, real slashing ability, competitive edge on both ends, and a history of answering when the stage gets bigger. You're talking about a prospect rated at the very top of his class, tested against elite competition, praised for his feel, his shot creation, and his mentality. That's not just noise, that's a foundation. And if you're the Golden State Warriors, watching the league get younger, longer, more aggressive at the guard spot while your identity is built on skill, movement, and IQ, of course a profile like Peterson's has to enter your internal debate about the future. I'm not here to invent a headline that doesn't exist. As of today, there is no official NBA contract signed between the Golden State Warriors and Darren Peterson, and I refuse to treat speculation as fact. What I am doing is taking you inside a strategic lens. If Peterson becomes what many expect him to be, the idea of Golden State positioning itself to land him stops being a wild fantasy and starts looking like exactly the kind of forward thinking this franchise needs. Serious teams don't just wait for the market to tell them what to do. They quietly line up their assets, protect their picks, build relationships, understand ranges, and get ready to act when the window opens. They don't just scout the next game, they scout the next era. On the floor, the potential fit is the part that should make every locked-in Warriors fan sit up. Imagine dropping a guard with Peterson's scoring package into an offense built on split cuts, pin downs, ghost screens, and endless off-ball threats. Early on, he isn't asked to be savior. He comes off the bench or plays staggered with Steph, attacking tilted defenses, running pick and roll with real spacing, punishing switches with his frame, cutting when defenses overplay the arc. He learns to make the extra pass because in this system, there is always an open man if you read correctly. That's how you turn talent into impact. You don't dump the entire weight of a franchise on him as a rookie. You plug him into a structure that maximizes what he already does well and stretches his game in the right directions. Defensively, the upside is just as important. We've watched Golden State struggle too many nights containing explosive guards at the point of attack, putting impossible pressure on backline help. A guard with the tools to slide, contest, fight over screens, and use his body gives you something you've been begging for. A young perimeter defender who can stay on the floor in playoff minutes. Coach him hard, surround him with veterans who take defense personally, and suddenly, you're not just drafting points. You're building a two-way guard who fits the standard that made this team a nightmare when it locked in on that end. In a Western Conference full of big physical creators, having your own developing answer is not a luxury, it's survival. Financially, the logic is brutal and clean. In the second apron era, you cannot keep paying premium prices for maybes. You need at least one high-usage offensive piece on a rookie scale or near rookie scale number to balance out your books. A path that leads to Peterson in a Golden State Warriors jersey would mean multiple years of potential star-level impact at a fraction of star cost. That gives you the oxygen to keep real veterans, to maneuver at the margins, to survive a bad contract without detonating the timeline. If you land them the right way, you're not chasing the future, you've prepaid for it. That's why this conversation belongs in serious analysis, not just in fan fiction. There's also something deeper that anyone from Dub Nation understands without needing a spreadsheet: identity. The story of this franchise is not just about collecting brand names, it's about believing in your own work. Drafting Steph, Clay, Draymond, doubling down on a style that people laughed at before it conquered the league. When the Warriors leaned into who they were, they changed basketball.
A real move toward a talent like Peterson would be a return to that belief. We are not just a destination. We are a place that can build the next great guard, the same way this franchise once trusted its eyes and its work before the rest of the league understood what was being built. It would send a message to the league that Golden State is done living off old stories and is ready to write a new one with someone who fits its values from day one. Values built on reading the game 2 steps ahead, on unselfishness, on toughness that doesn't need a press release. And when I say that, I'm not talking about some marketing move or a highlight-chasing promise. I'm talking about a commitment that tells everybody inside and outside the building that if you wear this jersey, you are here to grow into winning standards, not into empty numbers. Now we have to talk about pressure, because wearing this jersey with that kind of expectation is not a small thing. Whoever steps into the future face conversation after Steph will be dissected from summer league to shoot-around, from a missed rotation in November to a bad shooting night in March, and every possession will be slowed down, clipped, debated. You do not tie your future to someone who isn't built for that world. The reason Peterson's name refuses to leave serious discussions is not only his talent, it's the way he has lived with expectations already, carrying the label of elite prospect, being targeted, ranked, scouted, picked apart since before he could even legally order a drink. Being tracked that closely, having every strength praised and every weakness magnified, it doesn't prove he'll be a superstar, but it does mean the bright lights won't be brand new, and that matters in a place where one cold week can turn into a national storyline. Put that in a locker room where standards are still defined by champions, where vets like Steph and Draymond don't need to scream to let you know when you're not locked in, where every shortcut is exposed on film and in real time, and you give him the best possible environment to either grow into the responsibility or be honestly evaluated without excuses. That's how a mature organization should handle a prospect with that ceiling, not by promising him a throne, but by giving him a serious runway, honest coaching, clear roles, and the chance to prove that his mentality is as real as his skill. So where does this leave the Warriors in practical terms? It draws a sharp, uncomfortable line between two mindsets that are fighting for space in this era. One mindset says, throw everything at one more veteran name, stack aging salaries, tape over structural issues with famous faces, worry about tomorrow later, even if it means waking up with no picks, no youth, no flexibility, and a roster that ages overnight while the rest of the conference gets younger, longer, more dynamic. It's the mindset that feels good on day 1 and leaves you stuck on day 600. The other mindset says, keep competing hard with Steph as long as he is elite, maximize Kuminga's growth instead of dangling him in every rumor, trust Podziemski's feel, be cold-blooded with emotional overpays, protect your draft capital and stay ready. Ready for the draft cycle where a guard like Peterson sits at the top of every serious board. Ready for the intel that confirms he's more than hype. Ready for the possibility to move up, to maneuver, to be aggressive at the right time if he proves he's that dude. Ready to make one big move that doesn't just chase headlines, but aligns cap, timeline, and identity in a straight line. In a league with a punishing CBA, that second mindset is the one that gives you an actual bridge instead of a cliff when the Curry era finally slows down. And this is where the hypothetical of Warriors bring in Darren Peterson turns from a wild phrase you'd drop in a comments section into a serious internal marker of what kind of franchise you want to be. Because if at some point that notification drops and it's Golden State securing his rights in a legitimate, planned, well-executed way, it won't just mean they like to prospect. It will mean they chose to build instead of improvise. It will mean they recognized a guard with the talent, size, competitiveness, and emotional toughness to grow beside Curry before taking over more of the load, and they were disciplined enough with their assets, their cap sheet, and their patience to be in position when it mattered. It will mean Chase Center isn't just a museum of banners and memories, but a live lab, where the next great Warrior is being built in plain sight, rep by rep, under the same lights that made this dynasty global. And that's why I want your voice in this before I close any discussion about it. Do you buy into this kind of move as the right symbol of who we are? A franchise that scouts ahead of the curve and trusts its development? Or do you still lean toward pushing every last chip in for another already made name, even if that risks leaving us empty-handed on the other side of Steph's career? Be honest in the comments. What kind of future do you want for this team? What balance between respect for the core and investment in the next leader feels right to you? And do you see a player with Peterson's profile as worthy of being at the center of that long-term vision if his growth justifies it? From my side, after weighing the on-court fit, the financial reality, the psychology of playing here, and the soul of this franchise, my view is simple and direct. If the day comes when the Golden State Warriors officially move to bring in Darren Peterson, and they've done it through a smart, clean, disciplined path, it will be one of those rare decisions that checks the basketball box, the culture box, and the future box at the same time. Until that happens, I treat it as a scenario to watch closely, not as empty rumor, because it perfectly captures the kind of ambition this organization needs if it wants to stay dangerous instead of nostalgic. And if you want to follow every step, every sign, every choice that can bring this possibility closer or farther away, stay with me here at the Warriors News Fan Report. Make sure you're subscribed, notifications on, and send this to that friend who never shuts up about the post-Curry era, because this conversation is only starting, and if a name like Darren Peterson ever walks into San Francisco wearing our colors, you'll remember that we looked at it with clarity, respect, and ambition long before it was comfortable.